I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you are standing in front of this massive, heavy, reinforced steel door.
Oh, like a bunker.
Yeah, or a subterranean bank vault.
Yeah.
Just thick metal bolts, heavy iron hinges,
Right.
and it is completely sealed shut.
Right.
And you really need to get to the other side of this door. So you walk up, you try the handle, and it's locked tight. I mean, it does not even budge a fraction of an inch.
Of course not.
So you pull out this giant ring of keys you brought with you, and you just start trying them one by one. You slide the first one in, but it won't turn.
Yeah.
You try the next one, and it gets stuck. You go through the entire ring, and absolutely nothing works.
Yeah.
Frustration starts to set in.
I'd be losing my mind at that point.
Right. So you decide, well, if finesse won't work, brute force is the only option left.
Yeah.
You bring in a heavy steel battering ram.
Oh, wow. Escalating quickly.
You get a running start. You hit the door with every ounce of physical strength you possess, and the ram just bounces right off. It sends this massive shock wave all the way up your arms.
Ouch. Yeah, those bolts are built for that.
Exactly. I mean, precisely. They are indestructible. So you bring in mechanical tools. You bring in blowtorches to apply heat. You try every method of forced entry you can possibly think of. But nothing even leaves a scratch on the surface of this vault.
Nothing.
You're standing there completely exhausted, completely out of options, and totally defeated.
Just done.
And then someone walk up right beside you. They don't have a battering ram. They don't have a blowtorch. They simply lean in close to the lock, and they whisper a single word.
Wow.
And immediately you hear this heavy, intricate mechanical click echoing from inside the steel.
Just from a whisper.
Just a word. The bolts slide back. The hinges groan. And that massive, impenetrable door just swings wide open on its own accord.
That is such a vivid image.
Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, our deep dive takes us into a space where human effort completely fails, and where a single word spoken with the correct authority changes everything.
Yeah, that tension between human failure and divine authority is central today.
It really is. So we are looking at this brilliant, fascinating text from the year 1871. It is a sermon delivered by the famous English preacher Charles Spurgeon, and it's titled North and South.
Based on just one verse, right?
Yeah, he bases his entire premise on a single verse of ancient scripture, Isaiah 43:6. Our mission today is to unpack how a very brief prophetic command about geographical directions actually reveals a stunning psychological and spiritual framework.
A framework for understanding human resistance, yeah.
Right, and divine authority, because, why does human logic consistently fail to change stubborn minds? And what actually is the key to the human will?
That image of the locked door sets up the core tension we are looking at today so beautifully. What we have in this text is a striking paradox.
It really is a paradox.
We'll see why human logic, human reasoning, and all our best rhetorical tools consistently fail to change stubborn minds. We'll also discover what actually constitutes the key to the human will.
Which is something I think we all want to know.
Oh, for sure. But to understand the weight of this, you really have to picture the setting. The year is 1871. Charles Spurgeon is standing in London at the Metropolitan Tabernacle addressing a crowd of thousands.
Right in the heart of the Victorian era.
Precisely. And this is an era defined by extreme confidence in human progress. The Industrial Revolution is booming.
People are building massive bridges and railways.
Yeah, they believe that with enough logic, enough science, and enough industry, humanity can solve any problem. They believe the human mind is supreme.
Sort of an early modern optimism.
Spot on. And right in the middle of that cultural atmosphere, Spurgeon delivers a message that completely undercuts that assumption. He takes this text from the book of Isaiah, which he openly acknowledges has a literal historical meaning.
Right. It was originally about a physical location.
Yeah. Historically, it was a promise to the Jewish people about being restored from their geographical exile. God is telling the nations of the North and the South to release them.
Give up and keep not back.
That's it. But Spurgeon doesn't stop at the historical context. He extracts a spiritual reality from that ancient promise and applies it directly to the human soul.
I love when he does that.
It is brilliant. He takes a geopolitical command and turns it into a diagnostic mirror for the world you and I live in right now.
That hermeneutical leap is what makes this so fascinating to me. He takes this ancient, literal promise and abstracts it into a spiritual principle for his current day.
And he doesn't pull any punches either.
No, he doesn't. He sets the stage in an incredibly dramatic fashion. The text immediately pivots to our present spiritual reality, and the premise is it's incredibly bold.
Yeah, he calls the earth a revolted province.
A revolted province. He states that this globe we live on is an active rebellion. Humanity has actively set up a new monarch, which the text calls the dynasty of darkness and death.
Which is a heavy phrase.
Very heavy. We have broken the good laws of the rightful king and established customs that are totally opposed to truth. And in this scenario, Christians are described as an army of occupation.
Sent by the rightful king.
Yeah, sent by the crown prince to reclaim the territory. Now, I have to stop right there and just push back a little bit.
Go for it.
Calling Christians an army of occupation is kind of jarring.
It is. It has a lot of baggage.
Right. When I hear army of occupation, I think of tanks rolling down a street. I think of curfews, forced compliance, military checkpoints. It carries a very negative connotation of oppression.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does Spurgeon reconcile that kind of aggressive, militaristic framing with the gospel's message of peace and grace?
That is a very natural reaction. When modern ears hear army of occupation, we immediately think of physical subjugation.
Yeah, force rule.
But Spurgeon clarifies the specific nature of the weapons being used in this occupation very early on. He is explicitly clear that this conquest is not happening by, and I'm quoting here, arms of steel or weapons that cut and kill and wound.
No physical swords?
No, none of that. This is entirely an invasion of light into a kingdom of darkness. It is a battle of ideas, a battle of truth, and a battle of the spirit.
Okay, that changes the tone quite a bit.
It does. He describes the current state of the world as the great rebellion or the sedition of sinners. He argues that humanity is in a state of active, willful revolt against its maker.
A sedition. That implies it's organized almost.
Yeah, it's intentional. So when he calls the church an army of occupation, he means they are holding sacred fortresses of truth in a land that is currently operating under a completely different, darker set of rules.
They're outposts.
Spot on. They are holding ground for holiness until the king returns. They are not conquering by physical force, but by the influence of a different kind of kingdom entirely. Their weapons are truth, patience, love, and a willingness to suffer for the right side.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. It is an invasion of light rather than an invasion of troops.
Right.
Spurgeon says the battle has been hard and stern, and every inch of ground has to be won by sheer push of pike.
Push of pike, yeah. Such an old, visceral phrase.
It really is. It references a grueling close-quarters infantry battle where soldiers literally had to push forward inch by inch with their spears.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Yeah, it implies that maintaining any kind of truth or goodness in a revolted province requires immense, deliberate effort. Nothing good happens on accident in a world bent on rebellion.
No, gravity always pulls you down. You have to fight it.
But framing it this way changes everything, doesn't it? If you look around and wonder why things are so difficult, why society seems so prone to conflict, or why maintaining personal integrity feels like an endless uphill battle.
This framework offers a direct answer.
Yes. You are living in a revolted province. Think about you, the listener, right now. You might be commuting to work, walking the dog, or, doing dishes.
Just living normal life.
Right. If you start viewing the world through this lens, that you are walking through a territory in active rebellion against its creator, how does that change your perspective on why things often feel so broken or completely upside down?
It suddenly makes the chaos make a lot more sense.
It really does. It provides a massive sense of context for our daily frustrations.
Yeah. When you stop expecting a revolted province to function like a peaceful, well-ordered kingdom, you are no longer shocked by the presence of darkness.
You're not caught off guard.
Right. You are simply prompted to remember the necessity of the light. And Spurgeon suggests that this rebellion isn't just some vague, atmospheric concept floating around society. It is deeply personal and universally distributed.
It's in the water supply.
Metaphorically. Every single person is part of this rebellion by default, from the cradle to old age.
Inherited rebellion.
Yeah. He quotes an old Puritan saying to illustrate this. He says, "They go astray before they go. They speak lies before they speak."
Oh, man. They go astray before they go. That is a brilliant way of describing it.
It is. The inclination towards sedition is baked into the human condition long before it manifests in specific conscious actions. We are born into the dynasty of darkness, and we naturally adopt its customs.
Which means we need to look at how this universal rebellion actually plays out in real life.
Because it doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right. If everyone is sick with the same root disease of rebellion, does it look the same in everyone? Identifying the disease is the first step to treating it.
And Spurgeon acts like a sociologist here.
He does. He gives us this fascinating sociological diagnosis of the resistance. He claims that opposition to the king is universal, but it manifests completely differently depending on who you are and where you sit in society.
The class breakdown he uses is quite sharp.
Very sharp. He says the high classes despise true religion out of intellectual pride. The low classes openly blaspheme it out of hostility.
And then there's the middle class.
And the middle classes, and I had to laugh when I read this because of how relevant it still feels, the middle classes suffer from carking carefulness about the selfishness of this present life.
Carking carefulness. I am so glad you highlighted that specific phrase. It is an older piece of vocabulary, but the psychological insight is incredibly sharp.
What does carking even mean in that context?
Carking means a burdensome, grinding, consuming anxiety. Yeah. Spurgeon is pointing out a crucial reality here. You do not have to be actively hostile or openly blasphemous to be guilty of high treason against the king.
You can just be busy.
You can simply be entirely distracted. The middle-class rebellion is often a rebellion of preoccupation.
That hits so close to home.
It does. You can be so consumed by your own self-interest, your daily worries, your career ladder, your property values, and the accumulation of wealth that you have zero capacity left to care about eternal realities.
So you aren't fighting the king, you're just ignoring him.
Right. This is the person who never says a bad word about religion, but functionally lives as an atheist because their entire universe revolves around their own comfort and security.
Wow.
The opposition takes different shapes: intellectual pride, open hostility, or consuming anxiety. But the root disease of rebellion is identical across the board.
It's all the same rejection, just wearing different clothes.
To explain this variation, Spurgeon introduces a fantastic agricultural metaphor. He says that all land will naturally grow weeds if left alone.
That's just nature.
Yeah, but you will not find the same sort of weed equally abundant in every single patch of soil.
That agricultural reality perfectly mirrors the human heart. If you leave a field alone, it doesn't naturally grow neat rows of wheat.
Sadly, no.
It naturally grows weeds. But the type of weed depends on the chemical composition of the dirt. Spurgeon says in one heart, the deadly nightshade of ignorance chokes the seed, while in another heart, the prickly thistle of malice crowds out the wheat.
Nightshade versus thistle.
Yeah. The soil is the human heart, and it is absolutely going to produce resistance. But the flavor of that resistance depends entirely on the person's natural disposition.
Which sets up the two main categories.
Right. And this is where we get to the core framework of our entire discussion today, the North and the South. Spurgeon divides this universal resistance into two main categories, two distinct psychological profiles that require completely different treatments.
I want to zero in on this North and South framework because it demonstrates a brilliant grasp of human psychology.
Let me break it down. What's the North?
The North represents the stubborn, self-righteous, proud soul. This is the person who holds fast to their own goodness, their own logic, their own merits.
The person who thinks they don't need any help.
Exactly. They have built a fortress around their heart and they have pulled the drawbridge up. They feel entirely self-sufficient.
So what do they need to hear?
The word they desperately need to hear from the king is a word of breaking. Give up.
Just drop the weapons.
Yes, surrender. Conversely, the South represents the despairing, fearful, retreating soul.
So the opposite of proud.
Complete opposite. This person is not stubbornly proud. They are paralyzed by shame or a crushing sense of inadequacy. They are always pulling back into the shadows, convinced they are not good enough.
And what word do they need?
The word they need to hear is a word of drawing. Keep not back.
Step forward.
Right. The brilliance of Spurgeon's approach here is the recognition that a doctor does not prescribe the precise same medicine for every single illness.
If you did, you'd kill half your patients.
Yeah. If you give a despairing, broken person the harsh medicine meant to break down a proud person, you will completely crush them.
You destroy them.
And if you give a stubbornly proud person the gentle encouragement meant for a despairing person, you will only inflate their ego further.
It is the ultimate personalized medicine.
Yeah.
You cannot treat the thistle of malice the same way you treat the nightshade of ignorance.
No, it requires a different tool entirely.
So for you listening right now, it is worth pausing and doing a quick self-diagnostic. What is your indigenous weed?
That's a great question.
Are you naturally prone to stubborn presumption? Do you always feel like you are right, defending your own record and feeling self-sufficient? That means you lean toward the North.
The fortress.
Right? Or are you naturally prone to fearful despondency, always hesitating, always doubting you are good enough, always retreating from opportunities because of shame? That means you lean toward the south.
The shadows.
Understanding your natural direction is crucial because the required treatment is completely different. But identifying the disease is one thing. How do we actually cure it?
That's the real challenge.
And here is where Spurgeon gets quite pessimistic about human methods for uprooting these indigenous weeds.
The pessimism regarding human methods is palpable throughout this section. Spurgeon argues very strongly that human persuasion, logic, and rhetoric are entirely insufficient to change a human heart.
They just bounce off the vault door.
Exactly. He says, sinners are not reasonable. None acts so madly as they do.
None act so madly.
Wow. The core argument here is that the root of the rebellion is not a lack of information. It is not an intellectual deficit that can be solved by better debate, a more eloquent argument, or a slicker presentation.
We tend to think if we just find the perfect analogy, people will change their minds.
We do, but Spurgeon says no. You can present the truth in the most logically sound way possible. You can use the most affectionate, loving, emotional appeals, and it will remain completely powerless against the locked door of the human heart unless an outside divine force intervenes.
Okay, I have to stop you right there because this raises a massive practical question.
I thought you might push back on this.
I mean, if the human will is a locked door that no amount of human reasoning can open, then doesn't that render the entire enterprise of preaching, and frankly, the entire enterprise of this show, completely moot?
Right, why even try?
Yeah. If our words lack the authority to turn the lock, why are we speaking at all? Why did Spurgeon exhaust himself every single Sunday standing in front of thousands of people if he believed his own human rhetoric was destined to fail?
That is the natural logical objection, and it is a tension that has frustrated philosophers and theologians for centuries.
It seems like a contradiction.
It does on the surface,
Yeah.
but the resolution Spurgeon offers lies in the strict distinction between human duty and divine efficacy.
Break that down for me.
To explain this, he uses the analogy of a plowman in a field. He says that even if the plowman could somehow look into the future and foresee that a specific patch of soil would never yield a single stalk of wheat, he is still bound to plow that field if his master commands him to do so.
So it's about obedience, not the harvest.
Precisely. The fundamental principle laid out here is that duty belongs entirely to humans. The result belongs entirely to God.
That is a huge paradigm shift.
We are commanded to present the truth, to reason, to persuade, to love, and to engage in the battle of ideas. But we must do so with the full, humbling understanding that our efforts alone cannot flip the internal switch of the human will.
We can't pick the lock.
We are relieved of the crushing burden of producing the result, but we are absolutely responsible for doing the diligent work of plowing the field.
That is a massive relief, honestly. It really takes the pressure off the individual trying to persuade a stubborn friend or family member.
Oh, for sure. You aren't responsible for their reaction.
Right. You are responsible for the plowing. You are not responsible for the rain. But it also leads to the next logical question. If we cannot flip the switch, who can and how does it happen?
How does the king actually conquer this territory?
Yeah. Spurgeon uses some brilliant mechanical metaphors to explain how the human will is governed. He says you move heavy blocks of timber by dragging them with ropes. You shape rough stone by hewing it with an axe. But you govern a free agent by speaking to them.
Which brings us back to your vault analogy.
It does. This brings us right back to my opening analogy about the bank vault. Spurgeon provides a similar, very vivid set of images regarding how God interacts with the human will without destroying it.
The analogies of the door lock and the watch spring are perhaps the most illuminating parts of this entire analysis.
I love the watch spring one. Let's look at the lock first.
Spurgeon states that forcing a will is like trying to open a door by breaking the lock with a steel wrench.
Which ruins the lock.
Yeah, that is physical compulsion, but the Lord has the key. He knows the precise internal shape of the lock, and he knows how to open the door without breaking a single pin inside the mechanism.
It's precise.
Very precise. And then there is the watch spring analogy, which is even more intricate. Think about the inside of a vintage pocket watch.
So many tiny parts.
You pry open the brass casing, and you see this astonishing array of tiny gears, balance wheels, and the mainspring. Everything is under a highly specific amount of tension.
Right, it's balance.
If a human mind is like that delicate watch, and you or I try to alter it by force, say, by taking a hammer to the gears, we will completely smash the mechanism. We will destroy the watch.
It won't tell time anymore. It's just broken metal.
But the maker of the watch knows spot on how to take his delicate tools, touch the most secret internal spring, and set all the gears in motion without violating the nature of the watch itself.
Who knows how it works from the inside out?
Yeah. Grace draws, Spurgeon says, but with the hands of a man. It rules, but with the scepter of love. The authority is exerted in total conformity with the laws of the human mind.
That makes total sense. Because if you use a hammer on a watch, you haven't fixed it. You've destroyed the very thing that makes it a watch.
Exactly, you've ruined its nature.
If God forced the human will against its nature, he would be destroying the free agency he created. He would be turning a human into a robot.
Which isn't what he wants.
No. The king's word touches the secret spring. I love that imagery so much. He does not violate the free agency he designed. He knows the specific frequency that makes that free agency willingly align with him.
Willingly is the key word there.
Yes. He does not drag us like timber. He speaks. And that brings up a really fascinating theological tension that Spurgeon addresses directly. He touches on the centuries-old debate between two major theological camps.
Ah, yes. The Calvinists and the Arminians.
Right. The Calvinists, who stress divine sovereignty, and the Arminians, who stress human free will.
Yes, he explicitly mentions those two perspectives. He notes that these two groups often talk past one another, locked in endless debate.
Still happening today, to be honest.
Very much so. And he humorously suggests that they often need someone to knock both their heads together so their brains can fuse into one.
That is such a Spurgeon thing to say.
Just knock their heads together. He is advocating for what he calls one capacious brain.
Capacious, meaning large or roomy.
Yeah, a mind large enough to hold two seemingly contradictory truths at the exact same time, even if our limited human logic struggles to reconcile them perfectly on a spreadsheet.
We want everything to fit into a neat formula.
And he asserts that God's truth overlaps all our neat little philosophical systems and defies all our rigid, human-made formularies.
So what's his synthesis?
The synthesis he offers is this. He lays the full, crushing responsibility of humanity's ruin entirely on man, preserving human agency and strict accountability.
So it's our fault.
Totally our fault. But he ascribes all the glory and efficacy of salvation entirely to God, preserving absolute divine authority.
All the credit goes to God.
Right. It is a framework that honors both realities without compromising either. The king rules men, not as inanimate blocks of stone.
It requires a certain amount of humility to accept that we might not have a brain capacious enough to perfectly map out how those two realities intersect behind the scenes.
We just don't have the blueprints.
No, but we can observe that they do intersect in reality. We can hold both in tension.
Which is what a robust theology requires.
Absolutely. So, having established how the king speaks, with an authority that holds the key to the will but does not break the lock, we need to look at what he says when he speaks.
The actual commands.
What are these royal edicts? Let's start with the stubborn, fortified north. The command is simple but devastating. Give up.
Give up.
And Spurgeon targets three very specific areas of human pride with this command. The first target is self-righteousness.
Self-righteousness is the great towering fortress of the North. This is the person who looks at their life and says, I am no worse than others. My offenses are trivial.
I pay my taxes. I'm a good person.
Yeah. I have done this good deed for my neighbor, and I have given to that charity. The command to give up is a direct royal order to renounce this deceitful self-esteem.
And he doesn't go easy on them.
Not at all. Spurgeon uses incredibly vivid, almost mocking imagery to expose the sheer futility of human self-righteousness before a holy God.
Oh, the mockery is spectacular, and it is so effective. He compares our attempts to prove our own goodness to spinning cobwebs.
Cobwebs.
He says it is a very poor trade to spend your life spinning cobwebs.
Because they're so fragile, you brush them away with a finger.
Right. He references the ancient story of Adam in the garden, trying to make aprons out of fig leaves to cover his shame, pointing out how flimsy and ridiculous that effort is.
As if leaves could hide you from God.
Yeah. He tells the proud person that the robe of goodness they think is so new and fair is actually riddled through and through with holes, devoured by worms, and completely moth-eaten.
It's disgusting when you really look at it.
And my absolute favorite part is when he tells the listener to give up that Pharisaic mouthful of a prayer.
Oh, what was the quote?
God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are.
Right, from the parable.
I love that phrase, Pharisaic mouthful. It calls out the sheer absurdity of holding up our flawed, fragile, comparative morality as a valid defense against pure, blazing holiness.
It forces the individual to recognize that their self-trust is a painted lie. He calls this reliance on human merit a rotten plank.
Ooh, a rotten plank.
Imagine trying to walk across a deep chasm on a piece of wood completely eaten away by termites.
It looks okay from a distance.
But the moment you put your full weight on it, it will snap and you will fall.
That is terrifying.
It is. And this leads directly into the second target of the give up command, which is the danger of formal religion and dead ceremonies.
This one is huge.
He directly challenges those who feel secure simply because of their outward religious affiliations or rituals.
Going through the motions.
Yeah. He speaks to someone who feels attached to the regeneration they assume happened automatically in their baptism, or the confirmation bestowed by a bishop's fingers.
Trusting in the ritual rather than the reality.
He bluntly states that all of those flattering reliances must be given up entirely because there is absolutely nothing in them if the heart remains unchanged.
The ceremony can't save you.
Even commanded ceremonies are only of spiritual use to spiritual people. If the heart is still in a state of active rebellion, the outward ceremony is completely meaningless.
It is like putting a fresh coat of expensive paint on a house that is collapsing from foundational rot.
That's a great way to put it.
The paint does not fix the structural ruin, it just hides it for a little while. And that brings us to the third target of the command, which is perhaps the most difficult one of all, giving up favorite sins.
The ones we really want to keep.
Spurgeon makes it clear that you cannot carry fire in your bosom and be safe from burning. You cannot keep drinking poison and expect to maintain your health.
Obviously.
But he understands human nature so incredibly well here. He anticipates that someone might hear this command and say, okay, I get it. I will clean up my act. I will stop my outward visible vices.
I'll be respectable.
Right. And right at that moment, he introduces another brilliant medical analogy to expose the fatal flaw in just changing external behavior.
The raging fever metaphor is a vital diagnostic tool in this section. He warns against the illusion of improvement when someone shifts from one outward sin to a more respectable inward sin.
Like swapping one for another.
He compares this to a patient burning with a raging fever, tossing and turning in a hospital bed. Shifting from the left side of the bed to the right side might provide a momentary, fleeting sense of physical relief.
You feel better for maybe 5 seconds.
But the fever is still burning just as hot in their veins. The illness has not been cured, only the physical position has changed.
That is so perceptive.
For example, if a person gives up outward, highly visible destructive habits like drunkenness or overt dishonesty, but replaces them with a cold, judgmental, arrogant self-righteousness, they have simply shifted sides in the bed.
They are still just as sick.
The underlying rebellion, the desire to sit on the throne of their own life and dictate their own terms, remains completely undestroyed.
So the king demands the whole thing.
All sin, whether messy and public or polite and private, must be cast out of the throne of the heart. The king demands total surrender of the fortress.
You cannot just swap a messy public rebellion for a polite, respectable rebellion. It is still high treason against the king.
High treason is high treason.
But the command to give up is not just for the unconverted or the outright rebel. Spurgeon makes a fascinating pivot here and applies this exact same command to the closest friends of the king, to genuine believers.
Right, the church itself.
What does it mean for someone who has already surrendered their life to still need to hear the words give up on a daily basis?
For the believer, give up becomes a relentless call for total, unreserved resignation to the will of God in every single aspect of daily life.
Every single aspect.
It means giving up the demand for a specific, comfortable outcome. If the king's will involves a season of sickness, a sudden loss of wealth, poverty, or drastic change in life circumstances, the response of the believer should be, "Thy will be done, I resign all to thee."
Which is incredibly hard to do. We always want to negotiate.
It is a call to abandon the backstair ways we try to play truant.
Backstair ways.
He talks about the human tendency to keep back part of the price, meaning we eagerly agree to do the king's will in 9 areas of our life, but we secretly keep the 10th area securely fenced off for ourselves.
You hold a little bit in reserve, just in case.
Yeah. Give up is the command that initiates resignation, leads to active obedience, and finishes with the complete consecration of one's talents, substance, and opportunities. It is a daily tearing down of any new walls we try to build in the North.
Which perfectly sets up the other side of the equation. Because while the North needs its defensive walls broken down, the South needs an entirely different approach.
Right, you don't batter down a tent.
If you tell a despairing person to give up, you will crush whatever fragile hope they have left. The South needs its structures built up. It needs to be called out of the damp shadows.
The command shifts completely.
So let's look at the king's command to the south. Keep not back. This command is targeted directly at the hesitant, the despairing, and the bashful.
He outlines three very specific types of people here.
He does. First, there's the prodigal at the swine trough. This is the person who knows they have completely ruined their life, who feels the weight of their guilt and wants to return, but is paralyzed by the fear of rejection.
They think it's too late.
To them, the king says, keep not back. Do not quench that holy flame of desire. A rich, free welcome is absolutely sure.
Just come home.
Then there is the seeker who is hindered by the crowd. This is someone who feels like they cannot get close to the truth because of all the noise, the religious hypocrisy, and the confusion around them.
They're distracted by everyone else's mess.
To them, the king says, press into the thickest of the throng. Persevere through the noise. Keep not back.
And the third group he addresses is particularly interesting because it deals with a very subtle form of self-deception.
Oh, this one is convicting.
It is the believer who is hesitating to fully integrate into the community or use their talents. They are hanging back from making a public profession, from joining a local church, or from stepping into any form of active service.
And they always have an excuse.
The reasons they give for this hesitation are usually dressed up in a false sense of humility or an impossibly hypercritical standard of holiness.
I'm just waiting for the right fit.
This is where Spurgeon uses a brilliant, cutting piece of humor to expose the utter absurdity of waiting for ideal conditions before taking action.
Yes, here is where the tone gets incredibly blunt and, honestly, pretty funny.
He doesn't hold back.
He addresses the person who is keeping back because they say the local church is not perfect. They say there are hypocrites in the church or the people are flawed. And Spurgeon's response is priceless. He says, if the church were perfect, we should not endure you in it.
Right, because you aren't perfect either.
The logic is absolutely flawless. If you demand a flawless community, you immediately disqualify yourself from joining it because you bring your own flaws with you.
You'd ruin it the second you walk through the doors.
He jokes that if a genuinely sinless person actually did manage to join a church filled with imperfect people, they would be such a speckled bird, such a bizarre anomaly, that the community would probably just pray for them to be taken to heaven immediately because they wouldn't know what to do with them.
That is hilarious. And so true.
It exposes how we use the imperfection of others as a convenient shield to hide our own unwillingness to commit.
That humor strips away the noble-sounding excuses to reveal the actual psychological barrier hiding beneath: shame, fear, and procrastination.
We call it humility, but it's really cowardice.
He explicitly links this kind of retiring modesty to laziness and cowardice when that modesty prevents necessary action. It is very easy to say, I am not good enough, or I have a retiring disposition, and frame that as a virtue.
I'm just a behind-the-scenes kind of person.
But Spurgeon challenges that disposition aggressively, especially in the context of a spiritual battle. He notes that in a literal army, a retiring disposition in the heat of battle is not exactly a commendable trait in a soldier.
No, it is usually called desertion.
Exactly. You cannot let self-satisfaction or self-deprecation paralyze your movement. He states very clearly, self-satisfaction is the death of progress.
Whether it's pride or false humility.
Whether you were satisfied with your own perceived goodness in the North or comfortably satisfied with hiding in your own perceived inadequacy in the South, both are forms of spiritual stagnation. The command to the South is a demand for continuous upward growth. He says the king's voice calls out, "Friend, come up higher."
Do not hesitate to climb. I absolutely love that framing. And to illustrate this specific point about using whatever small abilities we have, he shares the analogy of the glowworm.
Oh, the glowworm. This is so relevant.
And as I read this, I had to ask myself, is this just 19th century imposter syndrome?
It basically is.
Because the psychology sounds exactly spot on, like what people struggle with in the modern workplace or in modern creative endeavors. The story goes that the tiny glowworm looks up into the midday sky, sees the blazing sun, and says, well, I can never shine like that.
I can't compete with the sun.
Right. My little lamp is completely pathetic compared to the massive heat of the sun, so I'm just going to hide under these damp weeds and never shine my light again.
The diagnosis of imposter syndrome is highly accurate here. The glowworm's logic is fundamentally flawed because it is comparing its specific, limited purpose to a completely different entity with a completely different function.
Apples and oranges.
Spurgeon actually calls the glowworm stupid for adopting this logic.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he doesn't. The wise response, according to his analysis, is for the glowworm to say, "The sun may shine brightly for 12 hours during the day, but my poor, tiny light is desperately needed during the dark hours of the night."
Because the sun isn't there at night.
Right. Because my light is small, I must be all the more diligent to use it when the time is right. He applies this directly to people who constantly complain they only have one talent or limited influence.
I'm just a regular person.
He argues that having only one talent is never a valid excuse for burying it. It is the exact reason you must be doubly diligent. If you have 5 talents, they should certainly be used. But if you only have one, you must put all your wits to work to make something more of it, precisely because your resources are limited.
Keep not back. He gets incredibly practical here. He calls for laymen, businessmen, and farmers to stop leaving the work of the kingdom entirely to the professionals.
Stop waiting for the pastors to do everything.
He says they should educate themselves and preach in their own barns or on village greens. He directly challenges the modern idea that you need a vast platform, a massive social media following, or millions of dollars to do anything meaningful.
That's such a freeing thought.
If you cannot influence 1,000 people, maybe you can influence 10. Take the wide sweep, cast the big net, use whatever small light you happen to possess, but whatever you do, do not hide under the damp weeds.
Shine your light.
So let me ask you listening right now, what small lamp are you currently hiding? What ability, what word of encouragement, what small act of service are you keeping under a basket because you feel it doesn't compare to the blazing sun of someone else's spectacular abilities?
We all have something we are holding back.
The king's word to you is, keep not back. Break through the bashfulness. Stop comparing your glowworm to their sun, and shine your light.
When we synthesize these 2 royal commands, we see the absolute brilliance of this entire framework. The dual nature of the king's words addresses the entirety of the human condition.
Covered all the bases.
We are all dealing with either the disease of the north or the disease of the south, and frankly, sometimes we oscillate between the two depending on the day, the circumstance, or the specific challenge we are facing.
I know, I bounce between pride and fear all the time.
Oh, me too. But the treatment provided is comprehensive. There is the necessary, forceful destruction of human pride through the command to give up, and there is the necessary, gentle banishment of human fear through the command to keep not back.
Breaking and building.
The word of the king is forceful enough to shatter the strongest, most fortified fortress of self-righteousness, and it is gentle enough to draw out the most timid, despairing soul from the darkest shadows. It is the perfect, customized key for the complex lock of the human will.
It finds the secret spring every single time. And that brings us right back to where we started our conversation today. Think about that heavy, reinforced bank vault door, locked tight against all your best efforts.
The battering rams.
Your battering rams, your blowtorches. Human logic, heated arguments, guilt trips, eloquent debates, none of it opens the door of the human heart by force.
It just doesn't work.
But the Maker knows the internal mechanism. He speaks the word, and the log turns. So consider your immediate reaction to this deep dive. As you hear these 2 commands, which one creates friction in your soul?
That's the real test.
Are you secretly resisting the call to surrender a hidden pride? Perhaps clinging to a favorite sin or a sense of your own moral superiority? Are you acting like the stubborn North, desperately needing to hear the command to give up?
Or the alternative.
Or are you letting fear, shame, or a crushing sense of inadequacy keep you from stepping into the light? Are you acting like the retreating South, desperately needing to hear the command to keep not back?
We all fall into one of those directions.
The king has spoken to both. The only question left to answer is, which direction are you facing right now? Thank you for joining us on Reformed Thinking. Take some time to examine your own heart against these 2 royal commands, and we will see you next time.